Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this report. Mr. Speaker, going through this report, what the mover of the report said or laid on this floor of the House this afternoon is not the entire report. He spoke to some issues in this report. This report, Mr. Speaker, is 19 pages. If we were to give the opportunity to the mover of this report to speak or read the entire report, it was going to take him not less than 1 hour. So this report is rich, and this report is big. Mr. Speaker, the title of this report is, or the theme from which this report derives its theme. It's the role of parliaments in promoting coordination for enhanced disaster risk reduction, and recovery planning in the region. I also tell you, Mr. Speaker, that I also took time to look at the delegation that went to attend this particular session in Mauritius. And I've noted the names of the people who are in this delegation. But I won't go to that. Mr. Speaker, because when we are speaking, it's like we are not speaking to this report. When we are talking to this report because of the richness of this report. Mr. Speaker, I heard in one of the rulings to say people listen to Parliament radio, and they also watch Parliament TV. And yes, they do. And the people out there cannot be misled by anybody. Zambians are clever and they're able to discern. So this notion of saying when we speak here, we are speaking for the sake of misleading Zambians is neither here nor there. We're just doing our job. Why people sent us here? So we must be given that liberty to speak to these issues. Mr. Speaker, the background to this report, and I'm reading the report, it says the background. Disaster and climate risks were unprecedentedly on the increase, with immense adverse impact on the ecosystems, food, and water security. This is what the report is talking about. Livelihoods and people's lives. The Southern African Development Community region had, over the last decade, experienced a number of climate-related hazards, such as drought, dry spells, floods, extreme temperatures, resulting in unparalleled casualty counts and unforeseen economic shocks. What's that report is talking to? So when we debate, we must talk to these things. When they talk about dry spells, we must talk about them. How does it affect Zambia as being part of the SADC region? What are the effects of that drought? What are the effects? This is what all the speakers have been talking to. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I'm wired differently. I would not divert from dealing with this speech or this report to go and talk about the presidential speech. Time will come to talk about the presidential speech. Today we have to deal with this report. In the recent 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, there have been reports on the floor of this House. And it's like everything we are talking about these past 2 weeks, they are all feeding into one area or the other, talking to this report. It's like this report was distributed in advance. When the Committee on Agriculture spoke, it's like they were reading this report. When the Minister of Agriculture came to this floor of the House to talk about the challenges and all sorts of things he spoke about, it's like he had read this report. When the Honorable Minister of Green Environment...
Honorable Member.
Yes, sir.
May you take your seat? To start with, we don't debate ourselves, number one. Number two, you don't make assertions that you can't prove, that the report was circulated. Any report that has been submitted to the office of the clerk is secured. So if you say there was leakage of any sort, don't make insinuations, just debate accordingly.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies if you heard that I made insinuations. No, I didn't. I used the word like. It means the report, this report, and all the other issues I'm bringing into this report, which have been laid on the floor of this House, are feeding into the same thing of drought, extreme weather conditions, and the problems that arise thereof. That's what I was saying, Mr. Speaker. I did not in any way insinuate that the report was, I said like, which means that it was like. Mr. Speaker, fast forward. Mr. Speaker, when we speak about the drought in Zambia today, it's coming from this report. When we talk about drought spells, which we have experienced, and the effects are that we are going to have food shortages in this country. What are the mitigating issues that we as Parliament must put into place? This is what this report is saying. It's saying parliaments are important. They're important institutions, not only to provide oversight roles, but to be able to urge government or the executive to put in place measures that will mitigate these extreme weather conditions. Our role here, Mr. Speaker, is to advise those colleagues of ours on the other side, the people in the executive, to say, colleagues, the situation is dire. You need to pull up your socks. The situation of saying we sold the maize because we had to pay debt does not arise. The Zambians are much better. You cannot sell food from your house because you want to pay a debt and to leave your children hungry. That is not proper way of thinking. That is not proper way of doing things. Mr. Speaker, the dire consequences of this drought we are facing today and the mitigating effects that they are putting in place, Mr. Speaker, this is not time for rhetoric. This is not time for saying question. The people out there are hungry because of our climate change. People out there, they need solutions like yesterday, not in the next day or next week or next year. Because at the right time, Mr. Speaker, a time is coming. A time of reckoning is coming. Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, once said that it is not possible for Zambia to go through these problems unless those in the executive are not thinking properly, are not doing things in the right way. This issue of saying the problem of power shortages, of poor food supply, is because of negligence, lack of thinking by those in the executive. So the president said it many, many years ago before he became president. So if there are problems arising from this, it's up to the president and these people to do it.
The honorable member for